It all started with a shiver. It was the kind of bitter Chicago February day that makes you question your life choices. Inside a worn-down office building, Josh sat hunched over his computer, fingers stiff from the cold. The office furnace was on the fritz again, barely producing heat. Breath fogged in the air as co-workers huddled in scarves and jackets, sipping lukewarm coffee for warmth. An HVAC technician finally arrived, checked a few things, then casually dropped a bomb. "It'll be about $1,800 to replace the thermostat." Josh blinked, stunned. How could something so small cost so much? Was this guy serious? But instead of getting frustrated, Josh got curious. His mind started doing quick math. How long was the guy even here? Maybe 30 minutes? What kind of margins did this HVAC technician make per day, per job, per month? That single question set Josh down a path that would change everything. He had no idea that a broken thermostat would become the catalyst for his escape from corporate life. Later that day, back at his desk, Josh opened his browser and typed something he'd never typed before: HVAC businesses for sale. What popped up shocked him. Listing No. 217 caught his eye instantly. It read, residential HVAC service business, $60,000, owner retiring after 32 years. That was it. No gimmicks, no corporate speak, just a straightforward business listing priced at less than what Josh owed in student loans. The price seemed almost suspiciously low. But the more Josh looked, the more it made sense. Heating and air conditioning aren't luxuries. They're survival essentials, especially in the Midwest. People don't skip furnace repairs during a blizzard or air conditioner maintenance during a heat wave. HVAC was one of those few boring businesses that delivered consistent year-round income. And this one came with recurring service contracts, the ability to upsell newer tech like smart thermostats or indoor air quality monitors, and most importantly, a built-in customer base. The next step was reaching out to the seller. Enter Barbara, 64 years old, wiry strong, practical, and ready to trade a life of crawl spaces and boiler rooms for fishing rods and lakeside mornings. She wasn't just selling a business, she was passing down a legacy. After 3 decades of running the show and getting furnace calls at 3 a.m., she was ready to retire. But she wasn't going to just hand her reputation over to anyone. When Josh met her, he saw the years in her hands, the stories in her eyes. She made it clear she'd finance part of the deal herself if Josh promised to uphold her company's name and treat the customers with respect. They shook hands in front of her old service van, her logo still proudly printed on the side. That handshake, in many ways, sealed more than just a business transaction. It marked the beginning of Josh's transformation. Now came the hard part, funding the deal. The purchase price was $60,000. Josh had just $9,000 in personal savings, hardly enough to make a dent. But Barbara had already offered a seller finance note for $21,000 at 5% over 4 years. That covered 35% of the deal. For the remaining $30,000, Josh applied for an SBA microloan, which he secured at a rate of prime plus 1.25%, repayable over 10 years. Just like that, the full capital stack was in place. He was buying a fully operating business with $4,700 in seller's discretionary earnings from day one, and his personal risk was relatively small. In fact, the numbers showed his out-of-pocket investment could be recovered in just 10 months. But Josh wasn't going to take any chances. He committed to doing real due diligence before moving forward. First, he examined the customer list. 312 active service contracts. Not leads, actual paying returning customers with scheduled annual maintenance. Seasonality was a concern at first, but Barbara showed him that winter furnace tune-ups were balanced by summer AC maintenance. The workflow was year-round. The package also included a 2019 service van fully stocked with tools valued at around $8,000. All licenses were active and there were no safety violations or legal troubles in the company's history. To make doubly sure, Josh paid $12,200 for a CPA-led quality of earnings report and a mechanic to inspect the van and tools. Everything came back clean. For a 6-figure financial future, $12,200 felt like a smart insurance policy. On closing day, Josh felt both excitement and fear. He walked out of the bank with the shop keys in his hand and a battered notebook filled with years of customer notes, service history, and ductwork sketches. He was officially a business owner now, not just an employee. The difference felt immense. He wasn't renting his time anymore, he was building something. The first 90 days were intense. Josh wasted no time putting his value creation plan into action. First, he introduced field service software that digitized dispatching, cutting scheduling time by 40%. He no longer had to shuffle paper job tickets or manually coordinate technician routes. It all ran from a sleek dashboard. Then he quietly raised prices by 8%, presenting it as an environmental surcharge due to rising costs. To his surprise, barely any customers pushed back, but the real magic came from upsells. Josh began offering smart thermostat installations for $199 each, tapping into the growing demand for energy efficiency and home automation. Within a few months, that service alone was pulling in an extra $1,500 in profit per month. He also hired an apprentice, fresh out of trade school, for 22 hours. That move freed him from field work and let him focus on growth, customer service, and systems. By month 12, things looked dramatically different. With automated routing, digitized invoicing, and upsells clicking into place, Josh's monthly SDE broke through the $6,800 mark. Barbara, still receiving monthly seller note payments, was thrilled. The business was not only surviving, but thriving, and she hadn't seen a single customer complaint. Even better, Josh no longer had to climb into dusty attics or squeeze into tight furnace closets. That was the apprentice's domain now. Josh had elevated his role to coach, planner, and strategist. He worked smarter, not harder. By month 18, Josh's transformation was nearly complete. His net cash flow had reached $8,100 per month, even after accounting for loan repayments, payroll, and business expenses. The seller note had just $9,000 remaining. And best of all, Josh was only working around 12 hours per week. Most of his time was spent making sales calls or balancing books from his laptop. No more 9 to 5, no more cubicle. His lifestyle had shifted dramatically. He now took weekday lunches with his newborn daughter, something he never imagined when trapped in the grind. And with the business mostly automated, he started spending winters in a cozy Airbnb in Arizona, working remotely while enjoying sunshine and family time. So what's the moral of the story? Josh's journey isn't some rags to riches fairy tale. It's a real-world example of what happens when someone dares to ask, what if? What if I bought a small, boring business instead of chasing the next big startup? What if I bet on cash flow instead of hoping for a lucky break? Josh's story proves that essential services like HVAC are recession-resistant. Whether the economy is booming or tanking, people need their furnaces fixed and their ACs maintained, and you don't need millions of dollars to make it happen. With just $9,000 of his own money and smart leverage through a seller note and SBA loan, Josh was able to acquire a profitable business, grow it, and buy back his time. Most importantly, he structured everything for scalability. By implementing software early and hiring help before he burned out, Josh created a machine that worked for him, not the other way around. So, are you stuck in a cubicle right now, wondering if you'll be grinding away at the same job for the next 10 years? Maybe it's time to look into the businesses nobody talks about, the ones that don't show up on Forbes but pay real money every single month. Want to hear more stories like Josh's? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Each week, we break down real, boring, cash-flowing businesses that ordinary people are turning into extraordinary lives. You don't need a million followers or a flashy brand. You just need the right mindset, a little bit of grit, and maybe a busted thermostat to point you in the right direction. So if you're sitting there wondering when the right time is to make a change, this is your sign. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes the smartest move is buying one that already turns. Josh didn't wait for permission. He saw an opportunity, took a calculated risk, and built a life of freedom, one thermostat at a time. Because in the end, it's not about getting rich overnight, it's about owning your time, building something real, and creating a life that actually feels like yours. You're one decision away from your own freedom story. The only question is, will you make it?